I was sitting in my living room, folding laundry on a Tuesday afternoon, when I noticed something strange. A tiny black dot on my bookshelf that I'd never seen before, positioned right between my Bible and the photo of Thomas. I walked over to examine it closer, and my stomach dropped when I realized what it was. A camera lens, so small I'd almost missed it, pointing directly at my favorite chair where I sat every evening. Before I could even process what I was seeing, my phone rang. It was my daughter-in-law, Jessica, and her voice was tight with false concern. "Anne, we need to talk about some things I've been observing about your behavior. I think it's time we discussed getting you some help." That's when I understood. She hadn't just put one camera in my house. She'd been watching me, recording me, building a case against me in my own home, and I'd had no idea. My name is Anne Williams, and I'm 72 years old. I live alone in a small brick house on Magnolia Street in Charleston, South Carolina, the same house where my late husband Thomas and I raised our two sons, Kevin and Marcus. Thomas died 8 years ago from complications of diabetes. He was a carpenter, a good man who built things with his hands and loved me with his whole heart. We had 42 years together before he passed. I've lived alone in this house since then, managing just fine. I have my routines, my independence, my privacy. I go to church on Sundays, I do my sewing work for neighbors, I tend my small garden, I visit with friends. Kevin, my older son, is an engineer. He married Jessica 5 years ago, and they have a daughter, Emma, who's now 18 months old. They live about 15 minutes away. Marcus, my younger son, is a teacher in Atlanta with his wife Denise and their 3 children. I don't see them as often because of the distance, but we talk every week. I'd been noticing some strange things over the past few months, little things that didn't quite add up. Jessica had started asking odd, specific questions about my daily routine. "What time do you usually go to bed, Anne? What do you do in the evenings? Do you ever talk to yourself? Do you ever forget things and then find them later in strange places?" The questions felt invasive, but I'd answered them politely. I thought she was just making conversation, maybe concerned about me living alone at my age. Then there was the day about 3 months ago when Jessica had asked if she could borrow my house key to water my plants while I was at my doctor's appointment. I thought it was kind of her to offer, so I'd given her my spare key. She'd returned it that same evening, and I hadn't thought anything of it. But now, staring at that tiny camera lens on my bookshelf, I realized what had really happened that day. She hadn't been watering plants. She'd been installing cameras. My hands were shaking as I started looking around my living room more carefully. How many were there? Where else had she put them? I found another one on top of my kitchen cabinet, angled down toward the table where I ate my meals. Another in the corner of my bedroom, hidden behind a picture frame. One in the bathroom, disguised as part of the air freshener dispenser. 4 cameras. 4 that I could find. Maybe more, hidden in places I hadn't discovered yet. I felt violated in a way I'd never experienced before. This was my home, my private space, the place where I lived my life, where I grieved Thomas, where I prayed, where I changed my clothes, where I existed as myself without any performance or pretense. And Jessica had been watching it all. If you've ever discovered that someone has been secretly watching you in your own home, you know the feeling I'm describing, that sick, violated sensation, that anger mixed with fear, mixed with disbelief. I sat down in my kitchen, trying to think clearly. Why would Jessica do this? What had she been looking for? And then I remembered her phone call from earlier, the one that had been interrupted when I found the camera. She'd said she needed to talk about observing my behavior and getting me help. She'd been using these cameras to watch me, to gather footage, to build some kind of case that I needed help or supervision or control. I thought about Thomas. I remembered a conversation we'd had maybe 20 years ago, long before he got sick, when we were still young and strong. We'd been sitting on this same porch on a summer evening, watching fireflies, and somehow we'd gotten on the topic of privacy and dignity. "Annie," he'd said, "promise me something. If I ever get to the point where I can't make my own decisions, where I need help, promise me you'll still treat me like a person, like someone who deserves privacy and respect." "Of course, baby. You know I would." I mean it. I've seen how some people treat their elderly parents, like children, like problems to be managed, like they don't deserve dignity anymore. Promise me you'll never let anyone treat you that way either. You hold on to your dignity no matter what, I'd promised him. And now, 8 years after his death, I was facing exactly what he'd warned me about. I needed to understand the full scope of what Jessica had done before I confronted her. So I did something I'd never done before. I called a private investigator. His name was Marcus Little, no relation to my son, and he'd been recommended by my friend Miss Geneva when her daughter had gone through a messy divorce. "Mr. Little," I said when he answered, "I need help. Someone has put cameras in my house without my permission, and I need to know exactly what's been done and how to protect myself." He arrived within 2 hours. He was a tall man in his 50s, professional and kind, and he took my situation seriously. He swept my house with some kind of electronic device, and my stomach sank as he found not 4 cameras, but 8. 8 cameras throughout my home, covering nearly every room, every angle. "Mrs. Williams," he said gently, "whoever did this was very thorough. They wanted to monitor your entire life." "Can you tell how long they've been here?" He examined one of the cameras. "This model has been on the market for about 6 months. These record to a cloud server. Whoever placed them can watch the footage from anywhere, anytime, on their phone or computer." I felt sick. Jessica had been watching me for months, watching me cry over Thomas's photo, watching me pray, watching me in my most private moments. "What should I do?" I asked. "First, don't remove them yet. If you confront whoever did this, the cameras themselves are evidence. Second, document everything. I'll write up a full report of what we found. Third, you might want to consider talking to a lawyer. Depending on the laws in South Carolina, this could be illegal." "Even if it's family?" "Especially if it's family. This is invasion of privacy, possibly illegal surveillance. Age doesn't strip you of your right to privacy in your own home." After Mr. Little left, I sat in my living room, now hyper-aware of the cameras watching me, and tried to figure out my next move. I couldn't just confront Jessica directly. She'd already called earlier talking about getting me help. If I accused her of spying, she might flip the narrative, make it seem like I was paranoid or confused. I needed to be strategic. I needed evidence of my own. I needed to understand what she'd been planning to do with this footage. That night, I called Marcus in Atlanta. When I told him what I'd found, there was a long silence on the other end. "Mama," he finally said, his voice tight with anger, "that's a crime. That's illegal surveillance. Jessica could be prosecuted for this." "I don't want to prosecute her. I just want to understand why, and I want it to stop." The why is pretty clear. She's trying to gather evidence to claim you're incompetent so she can take control of your life, your house, your decisions. But I'm not incompetent. I'm managing fine. I know that, Mama, but if she has months of footage of you living alone, even perfectly normal footage, she could edit it, take things out of context, make it look concerning. You talking to yourself becomes confusion. You looking for your glasses becomes memory problems. You having a glass of wine with dinner becomes alcohol dependency. The reality of what he was saying hit me like a weight. So what do I do? You get a lawyer today, right now, and you start building your own case. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about all the moments Jessica had witnessed through those cameras. Private moments, vulnerable moments. I thought about the evening last month when I'd cried looking at Thomas's photo, missing him so much it physically hurt. Had Jessica watched that? Had she recorded my grief and filed it away as evidence of something wrong with me? I thought about the times I'd talked to Thomas's picture, telling him about my day, asking him what I should do about something. To me, it was a comfort, a way of staying connected to him. But to someone watching through a camera, editing footage with malicious intent, it could be made to look like I was confused about whether he was really gone. The next morning, I called the law office of Catherine Price, an elder law attorney who'd been recommended by Mr. Little. When I explained the situation, she asked me to come in immediately. Catherine was a Black woman in her 50s, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense. She listened to my story, looked at Mr. Little's report, and shook her head. Mrs. Williams, this is one of the most egregious cases of privacy invasion I've seen. Your daughter-in-law has committed several potential crimes: illegal surveillance, violation of privacy, possibly stalking, depending on how the law interprets it. I don't want her arrested. I just want this to stop. I understand, but you need to protect yourself legally. Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to send Jessica a cease and desist letter demanding she stop all surveillance immediately and delete any footage she's collected. Second, we're going to get you a comprehensive mental health evaluation from a geriatric psychiatrist to document that you're fully competent. Third, we're going to prepare for the possibility that she's already started legal proceedings to gain guardianship over you. Guardianship? It's when a court declares someone incompetent and appoints another person to make decisions for them. It's meant to protect vulnerable people, but it's sometimes abused by family members who want control. If Jessica has months of edited footage that she claims shows concerning behavior, she might try to file for guardianship. I felt cold. She could take away my right to make my own decisions? She could try. But with proper legal representation and documentation of your competency, she won't succeed. We just need to be prepared. What I didn't know yet was that Jessica had already taken the first steps, and I was about to discover just how deep her manipulation went. 2 days later, Kevin called. His voice was strained, uncomfortable. "Mama, Jessica and I need to talk to you. Can we come by tonight?" "Of course, baby. Is everything okay?" "We'll talk when we get there." They arrived at 7. Jessica carried a folder, and her expression was a mixture of concern and something else, something that looked almost like triumph. Kevin looked miserable. He could barely meet my eyes. "Mama," he started, then stopped. "This is hard." Jessica jumped in. "Anne, Kevin and I have been worried about you for a while now. We've noticed some concerning behaviors, and we think it's time to have an honest conversation about your ability to live independently." I kept my face neutral, even though my heart was racing. "What behaviors?" Jessica opened her folder and pulled out printed screenshots, stills from the camera footage. "We've observed you talking to yourself frequently, having full conversations with no one there." She showed me an image of me sitting in my chair, clearly in the middle of speaking. What she didn't show was that I'd been on the phone with Marcus, or that I'd been talking to Thomas's photo, which wasn't visible in the frame. "We've observed you looking confused, searching for items you've misplaced." Another image of me in the kitchen, obviously looking for something. What she didn't mention was that I was looking for my reading glasses, which I'd found 30 seconds later, right where I'd left them. "We've observed you drinking alcohol alone." An image of me with a glass of red wine at dinner. A single glass, which I had maybe twice a week. "We've observed you crying frequently, showing signs of depression." An image of me with tears on my face. From the evening I'd been grieving Thomas, missing him, which was normal and healthy, not pathological. Each image, taken out of context, could be twisted into something concerning. Together, they painted a picture of a confused, possibly depressed, possibly incompetent elderly woman. "Where did you get these pictures?" I asked quietly, even though I knew the answer. Jessica hesitated. "We installed some cameras in your home for your safety. To monitor you because we were worried." "Without my permission?" "We didn't think you'd agree, and we were concerned." "So you violated my privacy? You spied on me in my own home. You recorded me without my knowledge or consent." Kevin finally spoke. "Mama, we were trying to help. We were worried about you living alone." "I'm not living alone, Kevin. I'm living independently. There's a difference. And nothing in these photos shows me being incompetent or unsafe." Jessica's voice took on an edge. "Anne, I think you're in denial about how serious this is. We have months of footage showing concerning patterns. Footage you obtained illegally by putting cameras in my house without my permission. We were trying to protect you." "No," I said firmly. "You were trying to build a case against me. You were trying to create evidence that I'm incompetent. So you could, what? Take control? Get guardianship? Force me into a nursing home?" The flash of guilt on Jessica's face told me I'd hid close to the truth. Kevin looked shocked. "Jessica, is that what this was about?" Of course not, Jessica said quickly. I genuinely believe Anne needs help. The cameras were just to document what we were already seeing. You weren't seeing anything, I said. You were creating a narrative that didn't exist. Taking normal moments and twisting them into evidence of problems that aren't there. I pulled out my own folder, the one Catherine Price had helped me prepare. Since we're sharing evidence, let me show you some of mine. This is a report from a private investigator documenting 8 hidden cameras placed throughout my home without my knowledge. This is a letter from my attorney explaining that what you've done is potentially illegal. And this is an evaluation from Dr. Patricia Chen, a geriatric psychiatrist who conducted a comprehensive assessment and found me to be fully competent, with no cognitive impairment, no depression requiring intervention, and no reason I cannot continue living independently. I laid the papers on the coffee table between us. You violated my privacy, Jessica. You spied on me for months. You took intimate moments from my private life and tried to weaponize them against me. And worst of all, you manipulated my son into believing I was incompetent when you had no evidence except footage taken out of context. Kevin was staring at the papers, his face pale. Mama, I didn't know. I thought Jessica said she was just checking on you, that the cameras were for safety. Did she tell you she was watching me in my bathroom, recording my most private moments? Kevin turned to Jessica, his expression hardening. Please tell me that's not true. Jessica's face flushed. I wasn't watching the bathroom footage. I wanted to be thorough. You put a camera in my mother's bathroom? Kevin's voice rose. What is wrong with you? I was trying to make sure she was safe. What if she fell? What if something happened and no one was there to help? Then you ask her if she wants cameras, I said. You don't install them secretly. You don't violate her privacy and dignity. You treat her like a human being capable of making her own decisions. But what I discovered next made the betrayal even worse, because Jessica's plan went beyond just surveillance. There's something else you should know, I said, pulling out another document. I did some investigating of my own. I found out that Jessica has been in contact with Shady Oaks Assisted Living, a nursing home about 30 miles from here. She's been on their waiting list for a room. In my name. Kevin's head snapped toward Jessica. What? I was just exploring options, Jessica said defensively, in case Anne needed care in the future. The application is dated 2 months ago, I said, and it's not for future placement, it's for immediate placement. Jessica told them I was currently showing signs of dementia and confusion and needed supervised care. I handed Kevin the paperwork I'd obtained from the facility. They'd been willing to share it with me once I'd explained I was the subject of the application and hadn't authorized it. Kevin read through it, his hands shaking. Jessica, you told them Mama has dementia? You lied to a medical facility? I didn't lie. I expressed concerns. Concerns based on what? Secretly recorded footage of Mama living her normal life? Jessica's composure was cracking. You don't understand. Your mother is getting older. She won't be able to live alone forever. I was planning ahead, trying to make sure she'd be taken care of. In a nursing home 30 miles away? I asked quietly. Not near you or Kevin, not somewhere I could still see my family regularly. Why so far, Jessica? She didn't answer, but I already knew. She wanted me somewhere distant, somewhere she could control visits, control information, control the narrative about my condition. And what was going to happen to my house, I asked. Once I was in Shady Oaks, unable to make my own decisions, what was the plan for this house I've lived in for 45 years? Again, silence. But Kevin's face told me he was putting the pieces together too. You were going to sell it, he said, looking at his wife. You were going to put Mama in a home and sell her house. We need the money, Jessica burst out. We have Emma to think about, college funds to save for, our own future. Your mother is sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in home equity that she doesn't even need. It's not your money, Kevin said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. It's not your house. It's not your decision. I'm your wife. We're supposed to be a team, and your mother has resources that could help our family. By putting her in a nursing home against her will, by lying about her mental state, by spying on her and trying to declare her incompetent? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to think practically about the future. Practically, I said. Jessica, you installed cameras in my bathroom. You recorded me in my most private moments. You lied to medical facilities about me having dementia. You tried to institutionalize me so you could take my house. That's not practical planning. That's abuse. The word hung in the air. Abuse. Kevin put his head in his hands. How did I not see this? How did I let this happen? Because you trusted your wife, I said gently, and she took advantage of that trust. I remembered Kevin as a little boy, maybe 9 years old. He'd come to me one day upset because he'd seen some older boys bullying a smaller kid at school. "Mama, I didn't know what to do," he'd said, tears in his eyes. "I wanted to help, but I was scared." I'd held him and said, "Baby, standing up for what's right is always scary. But you know the difference between right and wrong. You've always known it. Trust that knowledge, even when it's hard." The next day, he'd told a teacher about the bullying. He'd done the right thing, even though it was hard. Now, watching my adult son process his wife's betrayal, I hoped he'd remember that lesson. That he'd find the courage to stand up for what was right, even when it meant standing against the woman he loved. "Mama," Kevin said quietly, "what do you want to do? Do you want to press charges? Get a restraining order? What?" "I want the cameras removed. I want all footage deleted. I want Jessica to withdraw the application to Shady Oaks and to admit to them that she lied about my condition. And I want my spare key back." "That's all?" Jessica asked, surprised. "No, I also want family therapy, all of us, because this level of violation, this level of manipulation, we can't just move past it. We need professional help to address why this happened and how to make sure it never happens again." "And if I refuse?" Jessica asked. Catherine Price had coached me on this. "Then my attorney will pursue legal action for invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, and attempted fraud regarding the nursing home application. South Carolina law is very clear about unauthorized surveillance, Jessica. What you've done could result in criminal charges." Jessica's face went white. "You'd send me to jail? Take Emma's mother away?" "I don't want to," I said honestly, "but I also won't let you victimize me. The choice is yours. Therapy and accountability or legal consequences." Kevin spoke up. "We'll do the therapy. Jessica, you'll remove every camera tonight, and you'll call Shady Oaks tomorrow and tell them you made a mistake. Is that clear?" Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of remorse or just fear of consequences. Over the next few weeks, Jessica did remove all the cameras. Mr. Little came back to sweep my house and confirmed they were all gone. She also called Shady Oaks and withdrew the application, though I made her do it on speakerphone so I could hear. "I need to withdraw the application for Ann Williams," she told them. "I made an error in my assessment. Mrs. Williams is fully competent and does not require assisted living." It was humiliating for her, I could tell, but it was necessary. We started family therapy with Dr. Robert Chen, a therapist who specialized in family conflict and elder abuse dynamics. In our third session, Dr. Chen asked Jessica directly, "What were you really afraid of?" Jessica was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I was afraid of being responsible for her, of Anne getting sick or declining, and it all falling on us, on me. My own mother died of Alzheimer's when I was 25. I watched her decline for years, watched my father exhaust himself and all their money trying to care for her at home. I swore I'd never go through that again." "So you tried to preemptively institutionalize Anne before she even showed any signs of actual decline?" Dr. Chen asked. I thought I was being smart, getting ahead of the problem. "But there was no problem," I said. I'm healthy. I'm competent. You created a problem that didn't exist. I know that now, but I kept thinking, she's 72, she lives alone, she's going to need help eventually, and it's all going to fall on us, and I panicked. Dr. Chen looked at Kevin. Did you share these fears? Kevin shook his head. I never thought that far ahead. I just trusted that Jessica knew what she was talking about when she said she was worried about Mama. Did you ever ask your mother how she felt? What her plans were for the future? Kevin looked ashamed. No, I just assumed Jessica's concerns were valid. Anne, Dr. Chen turned to me, do you have plans for future care if you need it? I do. I have long-term care insurance that Thomas and I bought 20 years ago. I have savings specifically set aside for home care if I need it. I have a will and advance directives. I've talked to my sons about my wishes. I'm not planning to be a burden to anyone. Jessica looked surprised. I didn't know you had long-term care insurance. You never asked. You just assumed I was going to become your problem and acted accordingly. I'm sorry, Jessica said, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely remorseful. I'm sorry for the cameras. I'm sorry for violating your privacy. I'm sorry for trying to control your life. I was so focused on protecting myself from what happened with my mother that I couldn't see I was hurting you. It wasn't a complete healing. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, takes years to rebuild, but it was a start. Over the following months, we continued therapy. Jessica revealed more about her trauma from watching her mother's decline, and I shared my own fears about aging and losing independence. We established clear boundaries. Jessica would not have a key to my house unless I specifically gave her one for a specific reason. She would not make medical or placement decisions about me without my consent. She would respect my privacy and autonomy. In return, I agreed to be more open about my plans and preparations. I showed them my long-term care insurance policy, my advance directives, my financial plans. I made sure they understood I wasn't in denial about aging. I was actively planning for it. Kevin and I had several private conversations where he apologized for not protecting me, for not questioning Jessica's narrative. Mama, I should have known better. You raised me to question things, to stand up for what's right. I failed you. You were caught between your wife and your mother. That's a hard position. It shouldn't have been hard. You've never given me a reason not to trust you. I should have questioned Jessica's claims immediately. Learn from it, baby. Teach Emma to question narratives, to ask for evidence, to think critically. Don't let anyone, even someone you love, manipulate you into betraying your own values. One evening, about 6 months after the confrontation, I was sitting on my porch with Emma on my lap. She was 2 years old now, chattering away in her toddler language. Jessica and Kevin were inside cleaning up after dinner. Through the window, I could see them working together, talking quietly. The relationship would never be what it was before. How could it be? Jessica had violated my most intimate privacy. She'd tried to institutionalize me, to take my home, to strip me of my autonomy. But we were building something new, something based on honesty and boundaries and mutual respect rather than assumptions and fear. Miss Geneva stopped by with some fresh tomatoes from her garden. She sat in the chair next to me and watched Emma play with my necklace. "How you doing, Anne?" she asked. "Better. Still healing, but better. What that girl did to you, putting cameras in your house, spying on you, that would have broken some people." "It almost broke me," I admitted. But then I remembered something Thomas used to say. "You're stronger than you know, Annie, and you're worth fighting for." He was right. He usually was. Emma started fussing, and Jessica came out to get her. There was an awkward moment when our eyes met, but then Jessica said quietly, "Thank you for watching her, Anne." "Anytime, honey." After they left, I sat alone on my porch as the sun set, thinking about privacy and dignity and the right to live your own life. I thought about all the elderly people who'd been through similar situations, or worse. People who didn't have the resources to hire investigators or lawyers, people who didn't know their rights, people who'd been successfully manipulated into institutions they didn't need, who'd lost their homes and their autonomy because family members decided they were too old to make their own decisions. I thought about Dorothy from church, whose daughter had gained guardianship and immediately sold her mother's house and put her in a nursing home. Dorothy had been mentally sharp, physically capable, but the court had believed the daughter's story about concerning behaviors. It could have been me. If I hadn't found those cameras, if I hadn't fought back, if I hadn't known my rights, I could be in Shady Oaks right now, 30 miles from my family, in a facility I didn't need, while Jessica sold my home and took control of my life. The thought made me shudder. Now, if you're listening to this story, if you're an older woman living alone and feeling vulnerable to family members who might be watching you, questioning your competence, planning your future without consulting you, please hear what I need to tell you. Your privacy matters. Your dignity matters. Your right to make your own decisions matters. Age does not strip you of these rights. Being 70 or 80 or 90 doesn't mean you lose your autonomy. As long as you're mentally competent, and most older people are, you have the legal and moral right to live your life as you see fit. If someone in your family is pushing you toward assisted living, toward giving up your independence, toward letting them make decisions for you, ask yourself, am I actually declining, or are they creating a narrative of decline that doesn't exist? Trust your own judgment. If you know you're managing well, if you're paying your bills, taking care of yourself, making sound decisions, don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And if you discover that someone has violated your privacy, whether through hidden cameras, reading your private documents, accessing your bank accounts without permission, or any other invasion, know that you have rights. In South Carolina and most other states, it's illegal to record someone in their own home without their consent. It's illegal to access someone's financial accounts without authorization. It's illegal to make false statements to medical facilities about someone's condition. You can fight back. You should fight back. Here's what you need to do if you suspect someone is spying on you or trying to take control of your life. First, document everything. Write down dates and times of suspicious conversations or incidents. Save text messages and voicemails. Keep a journal. Second, secure your space. If you suspect cameras, hire a professional to sweep your home. Change your locks if family members have keys you didn't authorize. Secure your financial accounts with additional passwords and alerts. Third, get professional evaluations. See a geriatric psychiatrist or psychologist who can formally assess your competency. Get documentation that you're mentally sound and capable of making your own decisions. This evidence is crucial if someone tries to claim otherwise. Fourth, consult an elder law attorney. These lawyers specialize in protecting elderly people's rights. They can advise you on guardianship laws, privacy rights, and how to protect yourself legally. Fifth, talk to trusted people. Friends, siblings, adult children who aren't involved in the manipulation. You need witnesses and support. Don't let yourself be isolated. And sixth, stand firm. When family members pressure you to give up your independence, to move into assisted living, to let them make decisions for you, ask them why. Ask for specific evidence of decline. Ask for medical backing for their concerns. If they can't provide evidence, if their concerns are vague or based on worries rather than facts, don't give in. Your independence is precious. Once you surrender it, it's very hard to get back. I know it's scary to stand up to your own children or their spouses. I know you don't want conflict. I know you worry about being cut off from grandchildren, but I'm here to tell you your dignity is worth fighting for. Your autonomy is worth protecting. Your right to live in your own home, to make your own choices, to have privacy in your most intimate moments, these things are worth defending. People who truly love you will respect your independence. They'll support your autonomy. They'll help you plan for the future while honoring your right to make decisions. People who are trying to control you, to manipulate you, to take away your rights, they don't have your best interests at heart, no matter what they claim. They have their own interests, their own convenience, their own fears or greed. Don't sacrifice yourself for their comfort. You've lived your whole life working hard, raising children, building a home. You've earned the right to live in that home, to make your own choices, to have privacy and dignity. Don't let anyone take that from you. If you're facing cameras in your home, manipulation about your competency, pressure to give up your independence, know that you're not alone. Know that you have rights. Know that you can fight back. And know that somewhere in Charleston, there's a 72-year-old widow who understands exactly what you're going through, who stood up for herself when her own daughter-in-law tried to steal her autonomy, who fought for her right to privacy and won. You can win too. Stand firm. Protect your space. Know your rights. And don't ever let anyone convince you that age makes you less deserving of dignity, privacy, and respect. You matter. Your life matters. Your choices matter. And you have every right to protect all of it. Hold on to your independence. Hold on to your dignity. Hold on to yourself. That's not stubbornness. That's wisdom. That's self-respect. That's exactly what you should do. You're stronger than you know, and you're worth fighting for. Don't ever forget that. The key: